Custom-made footwear. In this video I'm going to demonstrate how to measure and cast for custom-made footwear, things to watch for, and why we do certain things and why we need certain information. The most important information obviously is a cast of the foot. We need a pedigraph of the foot, plus we need some manual measurements. Number one, when we start custom shoes, we always want to start taking a pedigraph, and some people say, well, why do you need that pedigraph? Because you're going to have a cast of this foot. Well, unfortunately, in an ideal world, when you have a nice cast, that cast should always correspond with length and width of the actual cast of the foot. But we want to have this to also make sure that the cast is correct, because it does happen that people have do castings that are too tight. Toes are kind of cramped in the sock or in the plaster of Paris. So in order to detect those things, the pedigraph will gives us another dimension that will verify that cast if it's correct, and just to make sure mistakes are not happening. So it's a very simple process. We'll go over this in another little segment, how this pedigraph is actually supposed to be taken. But basically, it's important for us to recognize when we have a cast that there is a pressure point on the first metatarsal. It tells us, it might not always tells us, it gives us that information from the cast, unfortunately. So there's a lot of information that is presented to us from the pedigraph that has to correspond with the cast. Here's a charcoal foot, and you have the pressure here, and you have a first metatarsal head that might be prone for ulceration. So, as I said before, the pedigraph has to correspond with the cast. In an ideal world, we want to have a cast that captures the plantar surface of the foot nicely. We want to capture the foot on a little bit of heel height, if you want the shoe to be on heel height, what most shoes are. And we want to be able to make a nice footbed on the bottom of that cast. So in order to do that, we do need, if we're taking a cast, plaster of Paris or STS or other wrap casts, we need to create a casting platform that we can do a semi-weight bearing cast in the proper position that is required. You can see here's a homemade little device, a soft temper foam pillow on top, so when we place the cast on this in semi-weight bearing, we have heel height, and we maintain a nice profile of the plantar surface of the foot, and we're not, in this case a charcoal foot, we're flattening out these bumps, which is not really what we want to do. So taking a pedigraph is a very simple procedure. We want to do this in full weight bearing, and use a tracing stick that has a point that is right representing the side of the foot, so it has to be shaped like that. So in order to take a pedigraph, we'll lay this on the floor. We'll take this particular piece of paper away, put it on the thing there, on the carbon, and get the patient to stand up and come a little bit further forward. Okay, and lift your foot up, grab my shoulder if you need to. Okay, stand up. At this point, you just take the tracing stick and you go in 90 degrees around the foot. And then we'll mark the first and fifth metatarsal and lift the foot straight up, and here is the pedigraph that we have obtained. One thing to remember, to take the carbon off right away. Don't let it sit for a couple of hours. You have to do this right away. Okay? So that's all there is to it, taking a pedigraph. These devices are sold now by Victoria Phoenix. We had a hard time getting them in Canada, but Victoria Phoenix is distributing these. So one of the problems with casting for feet, you have to very often be on your knees to do the job properly, which can be very uncomfortable. So it is very important to set yourself up in a comfortable position so that you're not stressed on your knees and your back is not hurting. And in our clinic, we found a podiatry chair that we bought, and the advantage of this is I can take the chair and raise it up and get him as high up as I want to be able to measure his feet in an appropriate way. So I use a table that goes on here, and then I'll ask him to go forward a little bit. Yeah. And then now we're having him in a position where I can comfortably measure his feet for getting the manual measurements. And this is also a position that we can take a cast appropriately. So this is saving my back, and it makes my knees a lot more comfortable. So, measuring for shoes, we want to take the pedigraph and place it back exactly where it was. And then we take our measuring tape, which is supposed to be in centimeters, it's easier. We lift the forefoot up, we put a little pressure on it and let go, and we mark on the pedigraph where the measurement is taken. Now, for a normal foot, it shouldn't be that much of a problem, but if you have a deformity, we need to know exactly where that measurement has been taken. So the ball measurement, right behind the ball measurement, we call the waist, the span or low instep measurement, and we mark where we take that. And the heel measurement, 33. And then if you're making a boot, you're going to measure from every 10 centimeters plus, from 10 centimeters, 15, 20, 25, 30, depending on how you want the boot, how high you want the boot to be. So that's in a nutshell the measurements. If there is any hammer toes, you basically mark how high these hammer toes are, and then you do a cross-reference where that location is. If it was supposed to be here, then one little marking here, marking there, and where it crosses, that's where that height is. So you can then mark whatever 3 centimeters that is, and then in the last making process, we'll make sure that height is there. That's it for now.